You have a starting line and then you have a finish line, and you've just hit the finish line. But secretly, inside, you believe that the finish line is way further out because you saw someone else with that finish line. So you don't actually feel good about what you've accomplished, even though you accomplish what you set out to accomplish. And that is the part that we need to change. We need to change that unrealistic expectation and that societal belief that if we don't do it a certain way or how someone else is doing it, that we're going to be abandoned and that we're not going to be good enough.
Welcome to the Permission Slip Podcast, where I, empowerment coach, mindset expert, and holistic nutritionist Carmen share with you the tools, conversations, and resources you need to write your own permission slip, take massive action, and become obsessed with your own life. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Permission Slip Podcast. This is our final episode. So part 6 of our Best Self 2024, which starts right now in 2023. So far what we've done is in part 1, we built our foundation. Part 2 were the 3 C's, which were reflect, resourcefulness, and being relentless into our goals and what we're going after. And then part 3 really talked about the last R, which is resiliency. How to build resiliency in your life and become unshakable regardless of your external circumstances. Part 4, we talked about decision fatigue and what you can do to start to get rid of decision fatigue and just make your days be filled with so much more ease than having to make so many decisions and feeling frustrated and feeling resentful. And then our last podcast was so much fun. We had my other half, Joel, join us, and we really talked about having our best relationship in 2024 and some of the tips that we had for you for that, and actually invited you to join us. So inviting 5 couples to join us on our couples expansion experience here in Miami Beach, which is just so beautiful and blissful and expansive here in April of 2024. So I was really thinking, like, what is going to be the most helpful? Because that's really the reason why I record these podcasts. It's to be of service to you. This is a free way that you can get actual coaching from someone like me, a top tier holistic life coach. Because if you take away something from each of these episodes and you're not only consuming the information, but you're actually trying it out in your life, so implementing it and then integrating it to see how it works for you, this information can be the catalyst to your growth, to better relationships, to more success in your business, to whatever it is that you're looking for, better health. But you have to actually integrate and implement the information that you're hearing. And not only with this podcast or any book that you read, any course that you take. Most people are just constantly consuming information. And we really want to switch from consuming to integrating and implementing so that we can start being the creator and the connector of our lives and really start being the one to show the world how truly great life is. And so that's my whole big mission. I invite you to join me now in 2023. We don't have to wait for 2024. So today's message is going to be this: how to be super productive. And as I was doing my outline and a little bit of studying on this, it really went down a rabbit hole that I didn't know that it was going to go, but it is going to bless you and you are going to get so much from this. So I want to start with 3 things, like 3 tactical things that if you don't take anything else away from this podcast, you could just listen to this 30 seconds. And so that's this: whenever you have a task to do, don't put it off or don't do it halfway. Do it right away and do it to completion. Now, if a task is going to be a 4-hour task and you have 30 minutes, maybe that's just the wrong time to do it. But especially tasks that take 5 minutes or less, always do it right away and do it to completion. This will help you not have laundry out. This will help you not have dishes out. This will help you not create a junk drawer because everything has a spot. Everything has a home. You feel organized. Because let me tell you, when your environment is chaotic, it creates chaos in your mind. So do it right away and do it to completion. That is also going to help with the chaos that's in your mind or the anxiety that you feel in your chest sometimes when you're overwhelmed because you have so many little itty bitty things that you need to be doing all the time and you're not getting them done. So they're building up. So they're all shoulds. So do it right away and do it to completion. The second thing is anytime you feel like you're placing pressure on yourself, and you know what I mean by pressure, like not the good pressure where like you feel kind of challenged and you're challenging yourself and it's like good pressure. This is the pressure where you're going into the I have to do this, I should be doing this, you're worried about what other people think, you're going into imposter syndrome. Am I doing this right? There's doubt that's coming up, that type of pressure. Anytime you start white knuckling, let's just call it that. Anytime you start white knuckling, what I want you to do is I want you to take a break. I want you to rest. I want you to maybe come back to it the next day or go for a walk, clear your head, do something where you're not sitting, especially if you're working on a project sitting, because our bodies are made of energy and it's meant to move. And so, why do you think at 3 p.m. we don't feel good if we've been sitting down all day? It's not because we're sick or something's wrong with us or we need to eat or we need to have another cup of coffee. Usually, it's just naturally we need to start moving our energy. So, move your body. The other thing is when you're white knuckling, if you're asking yourself the question, how, I want you to start erasing that question. How do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? I want you to replace it with the word who. Who do I need to help me do this? Who can show me? Who can do it for me? Who can connect me? Who can guide me? Who can mentor me? Who might have the answer, even if I don't know if they have the answer or not? Because who is going to get you so much further than how? How keeps you stuck, and who propels you. So those are the first two things. And then the last thing, and we're really going to dive into this one a little bit deeper here, because this is something that if you can access this, this is going to change your life. This is going to create so much more freedom and time and space in your day, in your week, in your year. You're going to have the time to do the things that you want to do. This is going to be the catalyst to get to the next level of your business. This is going to build better relationships. You're going to feel so much more confident. And here's the thing, is I want you to start working on creating muscle memory around flow state. Now, what is flow state? I looked up a definition for you, but all of us, I want you to think about the last time you were in this flow state. So flow state is the experience of being so absorbed by engaging an enjoyable task that your attention is completely held by it. You generally lose a sense of time, self-consciousness, and anything that doesn't have to do with the task at hand. So that was the definition. And really what it means to me is when I feel so alive and free in my body, that I'm excited for what I'm working on because it feels exciting to me. That's the challenge part. Like maybe there's a little bit of a challenge in there and I'm not being distracted. I can lose track of time and it doesn't matter what's happening around me at all. I'm just fully present and embodying what I am working on. Now, for many of us, we have so many distractions that we don't allow this. The other thing that actually doesn't allow this is being addicted to having a chaotic nervous system. So a chaotic nervous system is always having a problem. It's always needing to do the next thing, jump from one thing to the other, to the other, to the other. And don't get me wrong, like so many of us have this issue with chronically activating our nervous system in this chaotic state, that what has happened is that part of us, so our ego part of us that tries to control us, gets really small when we feel joyful. It gets really small when we're in this flow state. And for many of us, we have what's called like this happiness threshold. And so a happiness threshold is really only allowing yourself to get to a certain level of happiness or joy or contentment or celebration before, like that's not something that your nervous system is used to. So it tries to kick in and control and like bring you back down to whatever your baseline is and your threshold. So let me give you an example. So growing up, I learned that part of, in order to be good enough, I thought I learned that in order to be good enough and in order to be accepted and not abandoned by my community. So what I just said there were two of the core tendencies of people. They need to not be abandoned by their community, and they need to feel good enough. And if anything is threatening our opportunity, where we're going to feel abandoned by those that are closest to us, or where we're not able to control how people perceive us, in other words, or we're not good enough, where we're going to feel not good enough, then our ego is going to kick in. So like in this example of the flow state, we're feeling so good. So a flow state is so awesome because it gives us higher productivity and so much more enjoyment. And we have so much more like emotional regulation because we have some dopamine that's released and we're feeling relaxed and optimistic and energized and really dedicated to the task at hand. But if we've never really worked in this type of flow state before, our ego is going to kick in and our nervous system is going to be like, oh my gosh, this is uncomfortable for me because this joy, this happiness threshold, we're passing it, we're surpassing it. And this is an uncomfortable place for me to be in. And so we're going to do whatever it takes in order to bring ourselves back down. Do you see how that might work? I remember like back in my corporate career, I was always the one that was just fine. And so I was the one that could do it all, and I could do it for myself, and I could carry 10 people on my back, and I could help everybody else. And I really thought that that was like part of who I was supposed to be. But what was happening there was I was building this identity of this person. This is who I thought I should be and I was supposed to be based on my conditioning and my experiences and society. And then based on those two core needs of really wanting to be accepted and wanting to be good enough all the time. And so what was happening was I was able to regulate myself, and with my nervous system, I got to a point where I would chronically activate it and then I would just always be fine. And so I was always going and I was always doing. I was addicted to working. But then what was happening, because I was always fine, is I wasn't allowing like high highs or low lows. So I didn't feel a lot of grief and sadness or any of those emotions underneath the fine level, but I also didn't get to experience excitement and exuberance and so like deep inspiration, because I was holding myself at this joy, at this happiness threshold. And then I trained my body and my nervous system, and my ego helped me build this identity of just always being fine. And it wasn't until I recognized that like I wasn't allowing myself to experience joy. I wasn't allowing myself to experience happiness, because what was happening, because I never had done that before, it felt unsafe. It felt really it felt really, really vulnerable to me. And so I started welcoming in a bunch of feelings, actually, to be able to push past the happiness threshold. I had to actually allow myself to feel the low feelings and allow myself to feel the high feelings so that I can access what we're calling this flow state. Otherwise, it was almost like the work that I was doing, whether I told myself I was passionate about it or not, or feeling challenged by it, it was almost like I always had to do the work. And it was almost white knuckling the work all the time, even when it was something that I deeply, deeply cared about, or something that someone deeply, deeply, I cared about doing for someone else that I deeply cared about. So as you're thinking of this, I want you to really think about like, how do you experience emotion and feelings in your life? And just remembering that it's a part of life and it's a part of us. And there's these parts of us that are going to come up, and it's not about saying they're wrong or they're bad. It's like welcoming those parts of us with grace and compassion and acceptance, and just remembering that that's not always like the authentic who we are on the inside, but that's who we've built up on the outside based on our conditioning. So let's get back to this flow state a little bit. And I want to talk a little bit more about these core needs that everybody comes back to, because this is one of the reasons that we're not accessing the flow state. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to access the flow state and really how to start accessing more joy and accessing more happiness in your life as well. Now, for any of this episode, if you want more information, please feel free to tag me on your stories, shoot me a DM, send me a voice note. I'd love to hear from you at Carmen Oling, because those few tips that I talked about at the beginning, so do it and do it right away, especially with 5-minute tasks. And if you are white knuckling, and make sure to take a break, take rest, and stop asking the question how and start asking the question who, and then creating muscle memory for your flow state. So these are the 3 like tactical things that I really want you to think about this. But there's always, when we have a tactical thing, there's always going to be something underneath that we can dig into. So when we think about, I'm not being as productive as I should. Great. Why am I not being as productive as I should? Where am I like not keeping the commitments to myself? And why am I not keeping the commitments to myself? One of the things that comes back to is going to be those core tendencies of, I don't want to be abandoned by my community, and I don't want to feel not good enough. Now, not good enough usually presents as, I don't know what I want. And this comes up all the time. I don't know. When the answer is I don't know to a question, when you're telling yourself that, I want you to challenge yourself, because the answer to I don't know is there. It's underneath that. And you do know. But what has happened is, because you haven't felt good enough, you've told yourself that you're not good enough. So you don't believe that it's possible for you. Really, underneath, you're not fully believing that it's possible for you. And so you tell yourself you cannot have it. Even if logically you're thinking that you're going for it, you have to really dig down to that core belief and really start understanding like what those are under there. Because the not good enough runs really, really deep. So if you are answering I don't know, dig into that a little bit. And do you really believe that it's possible for you? Because here's what I want you to know. If you can start busting through these beliefs that are underneath the reasons that we're not accessing the flow state, the reasons that we're not being as productive as we can be, if you can start breaking through those limits and breaking through those beliefs, because beliefs are our ultimate catalyst for change. You can hold them, challenge them, or change them. But listen up, you have to figure out that they're there first before you can do that. So that's one of the core beliefs that hold us back from the flow state, is just not being good enough. And so if we're working on a project that is challenging us a little bit, which is part of like how to get into a flow state, right? Then if we have a core belief that it's not possible for us, what's going to happen is that we're going to allow ourselves to get distracted. So our ego is going to distract us, our environment's going to distract us, something's going to happen, and we're going to put it off. But what happens when we put things off? When we put things off that we are not keeping commitments to ourselves, then it drives down confidence and it drives down motivation. And so if you can start uncovering what's beneath the reason you're not accessing the flow state, you're not being as productive as that you know that you could, then you can actually move past it, versus just starting again on Monday and having the same thought patterning. So the second core belief is, I'm going to be abandoned by my community. Now, the question I want you to think about here is, if I do X, Y, and Z, or if I do this differently than my community, what are they going to think of me? And your community could be your significant other, your friends, your family, just other people in the community. So a question to sit with here, and I have 3 questions for you to sit with today, is, where are you trying to control how people perceive you? So where are you trying to control how people perceive you in your life could help you uncover how you're really abandoning yourself over and over again to try to fit in. And often we're trying to fit in with people that is not even meant for us in this time of our life. The other question that I want you to ask yourself is, who or what do you measure yourself against? And how does this relate to getting into the flow state and the muscle memory? So here's what I want you to start doing as you think about, like, how can I gain more muscle memory in flow state? Because right now I have muscle memory in my brain, is what we're talking about, in our brain and in our nervous system. Right now I have muscle memory that I start off really good. I do my morning rituals, but then what happens is I chronically activate my nervous system. So I'm thinking I have to be doing something all the time. And those two core beliefs under there about like being scared about being abandoned and not being good enough are sitting there, and I'm not sitting with them. And so I'm jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. I'm not actually being productive. And then when I do something, I'm not sitting in celebration of the goal or the accomplishment that I've had, because I'm holding this expectation of how it should be or who I should be even higher than the goal that I set for myself. So think of it this way. You have a starting line and then you have a finish line, and you've just hit the finish line. But secretly inside, you believe that the finish line is way further out because you saw someone else with that finish line. So you don't actually feel good about what you've accomplished, even though you accomplish what you set out to accomplish. And that is the part that we need to change. We need to change that unrealistic expectation and that societal belief that if we don't do it a certain way or how someone else is doing it, that we're going to be abandoned and that we're not going to be good enough. And we need to come back home to ourselves. We need to stop abandoning ourselves. And this is the first step to getting into a flow state. And that is getting clarity and clear on a goal. And so whatever your task is at hand, and let me tell you, you could be doing a 20-minute task. And I highly recommend that. I'm going to share a tip with you at the very end here. And if you accomplish it, I want you to feel good about it. I want you to celebrate it. I want you to write it down, especially if you accessed your flow state. And every time you're accessing your flow state, I want you to have a flow state notebook. I want you to write it down. I want you to celebrate. What did you do before, after, during? How did you feel? Because we are retraining our brains that we are no longer going to be in that chaotic state and jumping all over the place. We're going to be clear and concise and focused. Because remember, when we do that, we have those neurotransmitters in our brain that actually make you feel more relaxed and optimistic and energized and actually dedicated to the task at hand, and you feel good about the work that you're doing. Don't we all want that? We don't want to go back to where we're doing the work just because we have to, and then our passion switches into like this thing that we're not even passionate about anymore. I see it happen over and over again, and it is this endless cycle of the thoughts that we're having in our head, along with our nervous system activation, time and time again, each and every day, this mental conditioning that we have. But the greatest opportunity and the coolest thing is we can find out what the beliefs are underneath, and we can start collecting evidence that we can do it a different way. So again, the how is set a clear goal, have clarity, have a little challenge and a little good pressure. The other thing is make it easy to focus. So know, like, what are your best working times? Keep track of that. Do you need to have water? What about a cup of tea with you? Is it nice if you have like some scent? Is there a particular scent that makes you really focused and energized? Maybe you're lighting a candle. What do you need to do? Do you need to leave if you work from home? Do you need to leave your house and go to a coffee shop? Do you need to set some sort of expectation with your team if you're in the office? And like have a transition ritual. So you've probably heard me talk about transition rituals before, but if you're moving from one task to the next, this could be going from work to home. This could be just different tasks that you're doing during your day. Have a transition ritual so that you can end the one thing and complete it. Remember, we're doing things to completion. And then you reclaim your energy again so that you can have a small amount of time of rest. Even 10 minutes is perfect, right? The Pomodoro technique, which I'm going to teach you in just a moment, says that even a 5 to 10 minute break in between these 25-minute tasks is going to help you stay focused, and you'll be able to access that flow state that we're talking about. So it's really focused periods with brief periods of rest is going to allow your brain to be the most effective and creative without getting into that state of white knuckling where we're going to feel burnt out. Okay, So the Pomodoro technique is this. So first of all, let me just recap because this was like a lot, and then I'll tell you that technique. I have a couple quotes I'm going to share with you, and then I just want to talk again a little bit about happiness. But so to recap, where we're at today is we have this mental conditioning that we make ourselves feel a certain way during the day. We have a threshold for joy and excitement and exuberance in our life. It's like we're doling down our aliveness. And we have an opportunity to be able to access this all the time because happiness isn't outside of us. We're all seeking for something outside of us, but happiness is inside of us. In fact, let me share this quote with you, and it's just really meant to expand. So here's a quote, two quotes that I love. I don't think we set and achieve goals in an effort to become happy. We do it because we are happy and we want to expand our happiness. How beautiful is that? We're already happy inside, and then we are doing the things that we do each and every day to expand our happiness. Or how about this? Happiness is our starting point instead of that threshold being just fine. Because if we're holding the line, if we're holding the threshold in our nervous system at just fine, then the thoughts that are going to back that up are going to be that really crappy belief-based system that we're not quite good enough and we need to dole, or we need to like do things a certain way in order to control how other people are perceiving us, because we don't want to be abandoned by the group. Like, it's just like human nature. And we don't understand that we're doing this. Like, we choose belonging over authenticity, like all the time. And the more that you can become aware of this, the more that you can come back home to yourself, stop abandoning yourself, recognize there is this joy and this happiness that's already placed within us. And so happiness is really the starting point. And here's the other quote: happiness is the starting point, and you've expanded the center by achieving the goal. So it's a constant outward expansion of happiness. And when you are this, you know, those people that you just walk into a room and you just like want to be around them because they are exuding so much radiance, so much joy, so much light, like they're lighting it up. That's because it's coming from the inside. You can see them, you can see their authenticity. And the more that you can do that, then you can start expanding it out to others. And it is just so beautiful. So I want you to start thinking about your typical average every day, your typical ordinary day. How are you feeling? What are the thoughts that come through? Are you often, science already tells us that our thoughts are the same, like, like super high, like in the 90% of our thoughts are the same day after day after day. And 75% of those are low vibrational thoughts that are stuck to our belief system. And so that's what we're talking about here, being so super self-aware that we can recognize that, like, oh my gosh, Carmen is right. I'm holding myself at this threshold of joy and success and achievement. It's called Upper Limit. There's a whole book on it, right? And so I'm holding myself here. And what would it be like if I allowed myself to expand? What would it be like if I understood that the happiness was already within me? Okay, so the technique on actually doing the tactical work, because so the tactical work is just as important as this inner work that we're talking about. But you don't have to do either or. This is what I see all the time, and people always mess this up. And that's why my gift of seeing your gifts and then pushing you into action around your gifts and the thing that you want to do, that you're choosing, that's most important in this season of your life, like that's my gifting, because we do both at the same time. We do the inner work and the outward action at the same time, because life is always going to show up and meet you at your point of action. And you're still going to feel shitty if you're doing the inner work and not taking any action in your life. Like, that's just how it is. And so I truly believe that you can do the inner work, you can do the healing, and you can go for it at the same time. Now, there's going to be different levels at different times in your life, but here is that Pomodoro technique. And I want you to try this out and see how this works for you in accessing your flow state. So first, figure out, like, what is the flow state for you? What is my clear goal? What is my clear task that I'm going to be working on? And clear means not just saying, like, I'm going to work on emails. No. You want to have a clear outcome of what you are going to produce. Like, I'm going to write 2 of my newsletters for my newsletters on this date and this date. The intention for the first one is this. The intention for the second one is this, and is going to be posted in Asana for my team to take care of. Like, that is really clear. And so then what I do is I set a timer for 25 minutes. It could just be your old standard kitchen timer, I wouldn't say timer on your phone because you should have your phone like far, far away from you and all of your notifications turned off. And then focus on the task until the timer rings. Now, this is going to be a trial and error because you are going to notice how many times you try to get distracted. It's not you. Remember, it's that part of you that's so used to being chronically activated and worried about being good enough and worried about what other people think. It's your ego that's trying to slow you down. And all you have to do is say, I love you. I see you. You've helped me get this far, but get in the back. I don't need you today. It's not about like, oh, not ever having that. That's going to come up. And then what I want you to do at the end of the 25 minutes is take a 5-minute break. 5 to 10 minutes. Get up, walk around, move, go outside, get sunshine in your eyes. And then after every 4 periods of this, then what you want to do is you want to take a longer break, 15 to 30 minutes. And I suggest you do this twice during your day. If you do this and you gain so much clarity on the things that you're going to do during those 8 work sessions, so it's not just writing a random task. Again, it's writing the outcome that you want to achieve from that 25-minute work session. And you're super self-aware and collecting evidence and writing in your notebook, writing down the times that you're in your flow state, celebrating what you're getting done, celebrating when you're keeping your commitments to yourself and not abandoning yourself. Time and time again, you're going to be so much more productive. Whew, that was a lot. I hope you took away so much from this because there is such a huge 110%, even for myself. We all, like, you teach what you need to learn the most, right? So we all can benefit from this because the work that I'm talking about, really, when I think about like doing the work, it's the inner work that we need to do to heal, to uncover our limiting beliefs, and to really like get to the next level. And it has 4 stages. And it starts with transformational work, and that's a little bit of what we're talking about. Finding a strategy that feels right for you based on you and how you operate, based on your human design, your Enneagram, how you operate. And then cleaning up your side of the street. This means taking responsibility for yourself instead of wishing that someone else or something else was different. Because if we're just going around wishing that someone else or something else was different, it's never going to work. You got to clean up your side of the street. And then the number 4 thing is making deep, intentional community relationships, because we're not meant to do this alone. I mean, if this over 75-year Harvard study didn't tell us anything, it told us that strong relationships were the number 1 indicator to living a long, happy life. So that's like the work. When I talk about the work, if you ever wonder what that is, it's the core foundation to my holistic life coaching, Flow Academy, all the work that I do, the talks that I give, everything like that. So as we end this podcast, let me just say this, that the opportunity is huge and it's all possible for you. You just have to believe it. And in order to believe it, you have to uncover what you believe right now, which is those shitty stories that our ego is telling ourselves. So we can clear that out and be super self-aware. So we can start trying out some techniques like this Pomodoro technique. So we can start retraining our brain, those neural pathways in our brain, to not keep us at a happiness and joy threshold here. We can start experiencing the whole gamut of emotion and the ups and downs, including the flow state. And the flow state is where you are most connected to source, to God, to alignment, where you'll be the most creative, the most productive. You'll feel the most relaxed, the most optimistic, the most energized, and it's available for you. And I'm so excited for you to get there over and over again. So start now in 2023 so that like you are practiced and you are ready to go for 2024. So I can't wait to hear from you. If you are collecting evidence that you are doing this and you are accessing the flow state, send me a DM, shoot me a message. Let me know your takeaways from this. I always love that. I'm so grateful for you listening to the podcast. And next year, we are definitely going to be bringing way more roundtables. I heard you. You want more of those. We're going to have a finance roundtable. We're going to have a book writing roundtable. So many roundtables that you've been asking for. And I'm just so grateful. So if you think that this episode would help someone else, please share the link on your stories, text the link to someone else. And I always want to hear from you because hearing your successes is something that really makes me so excited. So thank you for listening, and I will talk to you in 2024.